Hello and welcome. You're watching Cricbuzz Live. It's India versus Australia 3-match T20I series that begins in Mohali with the first T20I. Now, while you're watching this, I'm sure one eye, in your peripheral vision, everyone's looking at that T20 World Cup. This is where the prep has to begin for both the teams, especially India. My name is Tanay Tiwari and today with me two people who've got 360 vision. Yes, they're looking at everything. Mr. Ajay Jadeja, Mr. Joy Bhattachariya. Gentlemen, welcome. Tell us about your 360 vision, please. A little more.
I have no 360 vision. I am looking at this the way you look at the Indian team. For me, the Indian team, this is the festive season in India.
Yeah.
So what Indian team is doing right now is what I call holiday homework. You know, quickly get your holiday homework done and all that. So while everyone else is having fun, India is playing matches. So this is their holiday homework, getting ready for, the big World Cup.
And you can't leave it till too late. You've got to complete it very much in time.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to give your homework in time, and if you give it late, it's of no use.
Yeah.
So you've got to be ready. And I think I'd probably look at it and say, look, India's probably ready, because now it's just you were ready with your homework, you knew exactly what you want to do, and now it's just making sure that it's a last-minute revision hota hai na. तो हमारे जैसे
Exactly, this is last minute revision. You're right.
तो हमारे जैसे स्टूडेंट तो पहले तैयारी नहीं करते थे.
Yeah,
all our friends have done all the hard work and then we just go and copy it. I think this is that time of moment. You've tried a couple of years. In fact, India's last year after that World Cup, we tried many things. We've gone round and round. Homework's been handed over. Now it's about getting the assessment from the teacher.
That is true. Assessment time it is. Let's have a look, though, at how the preparation for Team India has been, because it's a contrasting pattern in terms of preparation for Team India, because you look at their preparation ahead of the 2021 T20 World Cup, just 8 games there, Joy, and in 2022, 25 already.
No, absolutely. And a great record of 19-6 is a fantastic record. 25 matches, of course, there is Ireland there, but a lot of these are top teams and they played really well. I think this is something they consciously, of course, a lot of it would have been in the FTP calendar previously itself, but they, I think, have made sure that this time they'll be well prepared. And what you're not counting is, those many matches, the IPL, which are also vital tournament practice to the teams. That's also top level competition. So, look, this year we've done enough work. The hard work has gone into making this team ready. Yeah. Now the question is, whether we can deliver, do we have it all right? Those are the questions to ask now.
But AJ, then the question is, because if you look at that preparation again and the kind of game time that this team has had, 25 games is not a small sample size at all. I mean, when you compare it to what it was in 2021, this is a huge sample size. But does this then culminate into perhaps solved problems from the end of the last T20 World Cup? Or do India still face the same kind of problems?
I mean, if you believe that because we lost last World Cup and what our problems were, at that stage of time, India was, Indian, whether it's the Indian fans or even the Indian cricket team, was looking at problems of batting, especially your top order or the pace at which you play. Those were the real problems. The other problem that you had and which you've sorted is, even at the last World Cup, we took 2 new spinners. Both of them have gone. Yeah. So, from that point of view, so that middle part is sorted if that you believed in that. Then if you go back to our seamers that we've got, so only Harshal Patel and, Arshdeep are the 2 new faces. So, but are you going to play them both or not? That's another question. So, if you believe that you had what problems you had last year and why you lost, we've gone back to the same players. I mean, so, so if somebody believed that that was a problem, then you haven't sorted that problem.
Okay.
From that point of view. From the spin point of view, I think, you're in a better position, definitely, especially with experience. With Ravichandran Ashwin coming in, I'm a big fan of his bowling, especially when he's bowling his off spins. So for me, that is a big plus. With your seamers, yes, you've definitely got better because now you've got specific skills out there. Yeah. You've got, Harshal Patel is I'm not a great fan of Katori bowling, but I'll tell you something. Harshal Patel is one bowler that has got me also to change the way I used to think about the game or look at the game. And he's got a special ability with that. And he's got pace alongside it. So from that point of view, very good. And especially the list that you showed, that's the perfect way to get ready for an exam. You work really hard over the year, and then just before your exam, you have a bad day. Yeah. That red line that you see Super 4 in Asia Cup, you lost out there. And so now you're ready, you worked very hard, but just before going into exam, you are a little worried because your results haven't come through. So you will put in that little extra that you should be putting in. So from that point of view, an ideal, preparation that you had. But the problems that you thought there were are still there.
That is true. And at the big stage, I think it's very important to know what to do. It's also very important to know what not to do. And perhaps, as AJ said, that Asia Cup elimination for Team India will serve as that very timely reminder. But the news from the centre in Mohali is that Australia won the toss. They've elected to field. I mean, that's a given. Let's have a look at India's playing 11, because both Jasprit Bumrah and Harshal Patel walked back into India's squad. But if you look at this Indian playing 11, Jasprit Bumrah has still not made it to India's playing 11. They, of course, start with the top three. Very solid. Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, Suryakumar Yadav at 4, Hardik Pandya at 5, DK at 6, Akshar Patel at 7. And no Rishabh Pant there. Harshal Patel, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Umesh Yadav, who came in for Mohammad Shami, who's out with COVID, of course, and Yuzvendra Chahal. But no Jasprit Bumrah. Perhaps they're easing him in, AJ?
Yeah, could be the reason, because, otherwise, skill-wise, he's your number one bowler. You want him there. So if he's come back from injury, maybe they want to give him a little more time.
Yeah.
Or it could be, you still want to, make sure that whether Umesh or, because, what happened, look what happened with Shami. First, you didn't think about him. You didn't have him around for a year. Then you bring him in and suddenly he gets, unwell.
Yeah.
So what if one of your premier bowlers at the top gets unwell? So, Bumrah will come into the game.
Yeah.
So you want to give that, an opportunity to Umesh and probably give him a chance.
The only thing I'm thinking is that, I felt, Ajay, that if they had to do it, they would have played the first two with him and then dropped him out. So I'm thinking, is it a bit of a niggle or something? Because
he said, Rohit has said at the toss that he will come in due course. Of course, this is a game that he's taking a break
because otherwise, isn't that what you would do? Get him out, get him a couple of runs and say, okay, he's doing fine, third match, drop him off,
Yeah, and the other two games are almost back to back.
Yeah.
The biggest break that you have between these two games is what, 2 days now? And
yeah, exactly. You would have played him, you would have played 2 days later. And then, so I'm thinking, I still think, it's some physio being overshadowed. Kamlesh is there, who's one of the best, the physio for the Indian team. He's fantastic. So he must have just said, let's just rest it for one more day or something. My sense is that otherwise, first match, you don't get off on the series not playing your premier bowler unless there's something. You could always drop him later. Why now?
Yeah, correct. And with Jasprit Bumrah, we know he's a champion bowler, can bowl anywhere. But for a bowler coming back from injury, especially, AJ, you need rhythm. You need game
rhythm,
time.
But what begs the question is that if that's the case and he's still got a niggle, then, before he was picked, the same people who probably left him out now because of the niggle were the person who was supposed to make sure that he's, 100% fit.
Yeah.
But let's look at that, Ajay. 3 T20 matches. Okay, there's 14 matches in the IPL.
Yeah.
And could have been 17, but Mumbai didn't qualify. But look at that. 3 T20I matches.
Out of 25.
Out of 25 this year. That's, I think, look, the fact of the matter is, he is our best bowler. He's a generational bowler. And I think he's one of the few, very few batsmen or bowlers dominate 3 formats. And I believe that Virat Kohli at his peak, to a certain extent Rohit Sharma, and Bumrah are the people who are 3 format players. And they are very rare.
Yeah.
And I just think that they're keeping him in cotton wool because, the way his action is not a very conventional action. I think they're just trying to preserve him as long as possible because he's a special talent and they don't want to overuse him at all because he's going to play test matches for you as well.
Yeah, correct.
So, that's my one feeling.
Just a question. Are most teams around the world in this format trying to, hold back their, main cards and not showcase how we are going to play? Because with Australia, we've seen, there was Warner wasn't coming. Now they've had many injuries.
Yeah, Mitchell
so
Starc
somehow I get this feel that, with so much of analysis going on, that teams now believe that in this format, because it's such a short format that you need to keep your surprises, bring out something at the last minute so the opposition can't plan against that. So could be one of those things. We're not sure.
Yeah. But with Jasprit Bumrah, we've heard this from you guys, of course, that game time is game time. You can't replicate that in the nets. You can't have simulations around that. Game time is game time. Does he need that game time?
There's still 5 more matches to go.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll just see it. Maybe he'll play all the next 3. They will not take a single chance with him. If he's 98% fit, he will not play. If this was a World Cup game and he was 90% fit, he'd play.
Yeah.
Here, there's even 98. Why am I going to take a chance? It's not going to happen like that. And he's too important for us. See, the other thing I was thinking about is you're right. Even the way Australia is playing, they're holding back some cards.
Yeah,
they don't want to play this early.
Premier players. We saw that. We're seeing that around the world now. With this format, especially people like to keep, certain cards hidden, and they don't want you to analyze. And we see that because there's so much matchup now. Certain bowler will bowl at a certain time. So you don't want the opposition to actually plan way ahead of the game. And maybe this is a new strategy that we are seeing because, this game's evolving, minute by minute. Every time you watch this game, there's something new to learn. And the way players and the coaches approach the game now has changed for sure. So maybe there is something in this that most teams are holding back their cards. Maybe it's genuinely that injuries are happening only to these, main players. But it could be genuine injuries or it could be strategy that we will soon find out when we get to the World Cup, I think.
Strategic calls, because that's correct. I mean, it's very interesting now that you look at Australia's squad. Mitchell Marsh, Mitch Starc and Marcus Stoinis, all three have not come to India. Of course, the news for David Warner was released earlier by Cricket Australia, but those three not coming and them sending replacements in, perhaps, you never know, maybe it's a strategy. But the one thing that also struck out in that India playing 11, AJ, was the fact, and something that we were discussing in the green room, do you play DK or Pant or both? And India said, well, in this first T20I, we play DK.
Yeah, and like I said there as well, and I thought this was the call that they'd probably make. It's a call that, coach and captain have made. They've brought DK in. They've, not had many opportunities with him. He hasn't gone onto the field as many times they would have liked. And, Pant is a player that, it's very difficult to leave out. I mean, I'm a big fan of Pant. That's a different story. But for anyone, I mean, because he's one of those maverick players that can turn a game around on his own. Not that the others can't, but he has that edge that I feel. So as a captain, as a coach, you have to think of many more things. Yeah. So in this case, leaving him out now is something that they can afford. And by the time they get to the World Cup, if DK is playing and if he's winning games, that question that you asked would be out of the window. And if he doesn't have a good run, then it will be easy for them to leave him out because, it's a call that they had made. And so I think it's a smart call.
Okay.
Because if you're going to, at the end of the day, what you're preparing for is that World Cup. And you don't want to be there worrying about making calls, saying, what if this one goes wrong? What if this one goes right? So I think it's a great call that they've done now. I'm a big fan of Pant. I would never want him out of a side. I would always have him in my side. But if you are running that side, and I can understand where Rohit and Rahul come from, and it's a good call because, by the time you get to the World Cup, you'll have the answer who should be playing.
Yeah, so that means there's some amount of pressure, added pressure on Dinesh Karthik as well there. Yes, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely. First, Dinesh Karthik. See, there are 2-3 big calls out here. The first thing I see is, and we were discussing this as well, number 7 is your first left-hander.
Yeah.
Correct. And I'm not a huge that you need to be left, right all the time. But number 7, unless you plan to float Akshar Patel, which you could, he's proven to be useful. But is he useful against, say, the quality of bowlers that Australia have or not is a different story altogether. Being useful against genuine 140 plus pace is not that easy. So perhaps that is something, a theory that we want to see if it's going to test out today. Yeah. My only problem with this is that, who is that, when you have teams, you always have that, senior players, this, and there's a mixture of youth and experience. And there are a couple of young players who give you that energy on the field. Yeah. Who's that guy now for India,
He's not young anymore, but I guess, if you have to pick out of that, you got to go with Hardik. I think Hardik's the only...
Hardik.
Yeah, Surya, but in the field you don't... when he's batting, yes, you see that. But on the field, running around, I see only Hardik in this. And no matter what you say, how old he is, senior most, but Virat Kohli.
Virat Kohli.
Yeah, energy, he's nuclear energy. We've seen that. He came out and talked about his mental issues and all that. But physically, you could never see that energy go down even, an inch.
A wisp, yeah,
and
absolutely.
He's your man. I think for that kind of energy, it's Virat and Hardik.
Power generator, that he is, Virat Kohli. Let's have a look at Australia's playing 11 as well. Of course, with no David Warner, there were question marks on who will open. Aaron Finch at the toss has said Cameron Green will open with me. Steve Smith at number 3, he's got a point or two to prove. Glenn Maxwell, Tim David, who's making his Australia international debut. Then Josh Inglis comes in, Matthew Wade at 7. Pat Cummins, Nathan Ellis, Adam Zampa and Josh Hazlewood make their playing 11. But the big name there is Tim David. Now, we've seen glimpses of him, Joy, in the IPL. We've seen what he's done around the world. He's a T20I, he's a T20 mercenary across the globe. And just the sample size there, and you look at the strike rate for him anywhere. He's played decent number of games and that strike rate is just staggering.
No, absolutely. And look, that's the thing. It's taken him 5 years, this journey. It's 2016-17. Tim David was on the scene, playing for Singapore, got into it. But he's been playing BBL for that long. I think he started off with Perth. He's really today, he's a kind of player who's a game changer across the world.
Yeah.
And he's got a combination of size and strength and timing, which is just rare. And unfortunately, this year, it just happened. Played a couple of matches, then got dropped for so long. But when he came back, he showed us exactly why there was so much money paid for him. And I think those are the kind of things that you look at. I just find it amazing. I was just thinking about saying that this guy's making his debut. I mean, you think about it, you feel he's been around for centuries, You've been hearing his name on scoreboards for the last 3 years. He says, now it's his Australian debut. It's amazing, absolutely.
It also tells you the quality of,
Players
the Australian side.
Who keeping him out. Yeah, correct.
Keep him out. And I think, didn't he qualify just, 6 months ago? Or?
Yeah.
He did.
How long ago did he qualify?
We were playing for Singapore before that, you're right.
So that's probably one of the reasons. But he's a fine player, and Mumbai probably missed a trick. Joyda was absolutely right. They started with him, they believed in him, they paid for him, and then a couple of games into the tournament, they just left
one
him
whole
out.
month he sat on the bench.
So they left him out. I mean, he's a quality player, there's no doubt. And wish him luck, because at the end of the day, when you play for Australia or India or Pakistan, that's the day every kid, whoever's started playing cricket, wants to do. So a little emotional day for him. So it'll be interesting to see. Because what can happen on days like this is that either you go one step up, you bring out something special out of you, or you could actually go into a shell and say, oh, now I'm playing for Australia, maybe I have to do something different. So I'd be very keenly watching, how he approaches, and not just me. I think all Mumbai Indian fans are also hoping that he does well. So then next year, then there is no in and out with Tim David.
Yeah. And they'll hope that all the big stage experience that Tim David has had, I mean, he's played in some crunch pressure situations across the world in T20 leagues, so that comes to his aid as well. But the one thing that Glenn Maxwell mentioned about him, he said that there are players and there are different kind of players, some time the ball, but the one rare thing that that isn't there with a lot of Australians is that he just has raw power. He's able to muscle the ball much in the same way Stoinis and Mitch Marsh do it. I mean, of course, we've seen the two of them do it for Australia. He said he does it against spin and quicks, which is something that's really impressive. Now, he does play spin really well. He's shown that. And perhaps he's right now auditioning and saying, okay, Marcus Stoinis is out. This is my time to show them that I can start in the T20 World Cup as well.
No, I think you should definitely start, because see, what happens when you have that kind of strength is you can afford to stay in your crease and hit. You don't need to, just the pure strength that you have allows you to, and that is something that's a rare quality to have. And he may not require it that much in Australia, though he might actually. Places like Melbourne and all the fields are big. But in conditions like India, where the ball is not necessarily coming on, strength is a very big quality. It's a very underrated quality. Because you need it to clear big grounds. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into trouble. And he's just that kind of player. See, every team today, everyone feels that if you have quality batsmen, you're going to score in the first 6. And you're going to get some runs in the end, because bowlers are going to go around, you're going to throw your bat. 7 to 15, who are the guys who can really keep that scoring rate up at that 9, 10, between 7 and 15? And it's guys like him. They come in at 5, they come in at 6. The strength, spinners, bowling, ball is not coming on. I'm still being able to whack it out of the ground. That quality is now the next quality to look for. Like people used to look for ODIs, give them starts. So it's a circular process.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's a cycle.
Absolutely.
So, just to look at this cycle, if you look over the years, what happens is, all the old players who were strikers of the players were pretty much like that. And then, the bowlers get smarter. So they start bowling different lines. They start bowling different lengths. So that's when you saw a period where, reverse sweep wallas and a little paddle sweep wallas. So certain kind of bowlers excel and certain kind of batsmen go out of fashion. I think this fashion will come back, because eventually this is the ultimate fashion. Because with those shots, yes, it's beautiful to watch and it's great to see somebody playing a reverse sweep. But there's a lot more risk when you do that versus somebody who has the ability to, clear the ground straight down the ground. And the bowlers who are probably now playing around the world are used to defending against guys who play, those shots. So it's a cycle that you see in sport. But the original cycles always keep coming back. It's like they say, fashion is temporary.
Class is...
Style is permanent.
Style is permanent.
So striking...
Class is permanent.
So striking hit was always, powerful people like Joyda said. Somebody who can clear the ground standing in his crease, not taking many risks. So, he's that quality.
So for me, the very simple way to look at it is, He's the kind of guy who would hit a 6 into the stands in the Eden Gardens with Rajat Bhatia bowling.
Correct, yeah, with no pace on the ball.
It was the Rajat Bhatia test for us.
Yeah.
Can anyone stand in his crease and hit Rajat Bhatia? Because he, you know that when Rajat Bhatia finally asked to retire from the domestic scene in cricket, he sent his email. It must have reached after 3 months because it's Rajat Bhatia.
So he must be buffering.
It took that long. But you said that the cycle, of course, repeats itself, and you're right. Every team in T20s, and we've seen how players like Tim David can really aid their team's cause. Now, I'm just wondering, who
Can I interrupt before your thought?
Sure.
Just to give you an example, Rajapaksha in Asia Cup.
Absolutely, yeah.
So his kind of play is not many players who at that stage who play like that.
Correct.
His success, because the way he was striking, see the lengths change. You got to play different shots to different lengths, different lines, and many other things. So the opposition is also evolving. They bring in certain bowler. So there is a period that a certain player gets going, and so.
You force the opposition to go to...
Mind. Sorry, I stopped your train of thought.
No.
Where were you taking us?
No, you took
Where
us
is that
right
train
there.
going now?
You took us right there. I'm saying that, I'm just wondering, who do India have then? I mean, we had MS Dhoni for the longest time and we knew he could muscle the ball on any track. We have perhaps a Hardik Pandya, but in that lineup, and I'm just wondering, who are the players who can actually come in and do that, muscle the ball? In the middle overs.
That man's not in this 11 at the moment. But like I said, so the trends are changing.
Yeah.
If he's not successful, somebody like Dinesh Karthik, who can hit the ball.
Absolutely.
Not trying to say, but he hits it in different ways. So those are different lengths that you need. So if you in a team, actually, if you have two of different kinds playing together at the same time, it should be the ideal situation. And I feel that going forward, whether it's IPL, whether it's Indian team, teams will start looking at that, like how matchup came. Yeah. How people saying left-handers should go in. So as the game is evolving, now when we look at numbers in different ways, people will start looking at this as well. In partnerships, do we have one guy who can play that length better? Yeah. And the other guy, if the bowler is bowling at a different length, is there another guy who can, play different shots? Yeah. Because very rarely, I'm just trying to think, who is a player that like Mahendra Singh Dhoni you referred to, he's not one you would think of, paddle it, do this, do that. Now you have Surya Kumar Yadav, right? Who does this, does that. But he also hits a 6, but he doesn't muscle it. So every batsman generally has a style of playing. Yeah. And they prefer a certain length or a certain ball. So you're right. I mean, I don't see that, anybody in that side.
Maybe Hardik and the man who's not playing.
Yeah, man who's not there today. Yeah, because who else? Because
that kind of power nobody else has.
I
mean, Rohit is great technique time.
So if you look at Maxwell and Stoinis, I mean, they're not here today. So they're totally different kind of players, right? Yeah. Mitchell Marsh is similar to muscle kind.
Something that Maxwell also said.
And you don't see Mitchell Marsh doing, reverse sweep and things like that. So there are different ways to skin a cat, as they say. Yeah. And each one has their own little way. And they both can't work on the same conditions and same ball.
All right.
But this is the evolution of this game, because now we're getting to so deep that every ball has to be played differently.
Correct. So before we move on, just one final quick prediction. Does the future hold place for a specialist muscler, someone who can really muscle the ball in that middle order for every T20 team?
I think the future holds that you've got to have one way of doing it. How you do it really doesn't matter. Because if you are a guy who muscles it or a guy who times it, as long as you can hit that ball out of that ground, find a way of doing it, you got to be successful. Just having somebody because he has that style, I don't think that time will ever come. Maybe there'll be some teams in IPL, we see these trends and moods that some teams go through. But generally, you got to find a way to, and it still gives you 4 or 6. How you hit it, where you hit it, our great game, this is the advantage, no?
That is true.
It's not that if you hit it here, you get extra runs, or if you hit it this hard, you get it extra runs. The greatest players of the past, I mean, this is test cricket time, and maybe a lot of kids who are watching would not be interested. The ones that opposition hated as a batsman was a guy who hit that ball, and you believed all the way running behind trying to stop that ball, and it would beat you right at that line. Because he got his 4 runs. Not just that, but he tired you out as well.
And minimum effort from his side also.
Yeah, correct.
No, absolutely.
I don't know if muscling somebody will just play because he muscles it well. If he does it well enough, he might play, but not just because his style is like that.
But I think, I mean, look at that one thing. Rajapaksa was a game changer for Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Just being there was a game changer because it didn't matter that he was getting his timing right. He just had the strength and ability. Of course, he's a combination of timing and muscle as well. It makes a difference. I feel, I mean, you can, as Ajay said, you can get the job done otherwise as well.
Yeah.
But the advantage of this is that even when the, timing is not going that great, you still have enough fuel in your tank to keep going because you don't time the ball every day. The greatest batsmen in the world don't time it every day.
Correct.
And so that's one of the advantages that players like this have. And I think Rajapaksa, that's why it was so dangerous. And I felt that Punjab didn't use him
lengths
that
are
well.
different, fields change. So, it's a cycle. And I think you've got to be ahead in the cycle as long as you are ahead of everyone else. Because at the end of every World Cup, what happens? Trend changes.
Yeah.
At the end of every IPL, what happens? The winner shows you a new way of playing. It's not a new way, but it's just that they did something different from everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
And then the world follows that. So when you're following, you're always behind. You'll have to find the way that is going to work for your talent and your team at that particular time.
Yeah.
And that's why we come back and watch this.
So the bowling versus batting is the arms race of cricket, na?
Yeah.
One goes up, the other one. You make a new ball, he finds a new way to hit it. Yeah. You change the ball, you start bowling outside the off, wide Yorkers, he finds a way to hit that ball. Bats change. So it's the arms race that goes on, continuous arms race, continuously escalating.
It is, of course. Back to the game then. Australia won the toss and they've opted to field, which means India is batting first. And we've spoken so much about finding the way. KL Rahul and the question marks around him, and he spoke at the press conference as well. He said that strike rate is something that I'm also looking at, and while there is criticism on the outside, I criticize myself more than anyone else does. And that strike rate, of course, is glaring now to look at, AJ, because KL Rahul is the kind of player, I mean, he's pure class, but that strike rate of 111 is starting to concern everyone.
Yeah, I mean, this is facts. I mean, I can't argue that, but I think what he said is absolutely true because he's got, the ability. We've seen him enough times. There's never been a problem with his strike rate in the sense when he wants to do it. Because when you see, he has almost probably two switches. Yeah. You see a switch A come on one day and he plays a whole different style. And 2 days later, there's a switch B that goes on and he's at a different strike rate. So I think it's probably one because he's had many injuries this year.
Yeah.
He's come back every time. And when you come back every time, you want to take a little more time. You want to get back into the groove and then you get injured again. So every time he's come back, that's why that strike rate probably looks that bad. And it's a fact. And I can't argue that because, stats are, there to show you what's happened. But why it's happened, I think this is the main reason. That every time he's come back, 2, 3, 4 games, he's taken a little longer than he generally takes. Yeah. And, and then he's had another break, then he's come back. So that's why that strike rate has stayed that. I think that 39 of 38 balls was the last time that you ever saw him around that strike rate. And then he's moved on from that game. Yeah. And whether he gets runs or not, I said this that day, I don't think from here on till the end of the World Cup, you will ever see him score less than, what is the strike rate you want? 150?
150 is fine.
You happy with that?
Absolutely.
If he gets past 20 balls ever, he will be at more than 150 strike rate throughout till the World Cup. Not to worry.
Done, sealed and delivered. What else do Indian fans want? What else do KL Rahul fans want? But the one thing that, of course, has worked for him as well is the backing of the team management. The team management has, of course, backed him through and through. And that's evident in his confidence as well, in the way he converses.
No, why? That's what I loved. I loved that he didn't try and avoid the question. He took it in the chin and said, I haven't done well. This is it. I'm going to improve. No excuses, nothing offered saying, okay, this is not right, that is not right, conditions right. He took it, and that's this current team. They own up, they say, I've made a mistake, it's time to get on. I haven't been good enough at this. Notice Rohit's statements also, what they were as a team and all, and he's been very straightforward about when they didn't play well. He's not been afraid to call himself out, he's not been afraid to call his bowlers out. And this is a team that is in that sense secure about the fact that team management will back them long term. In which case they can play honest, straightforward cricket. And I like the way this Indian team is at least approaching the way they talk to the media and they're honest, which is fantastic.
Were you honest today in setting the joy factor question? Were you honest and were you lenient towards us who can't crack it, who can't actually just make sense of it? What's the joy factor question
full toss, which Ajay will definitely get.
Okay.
Let's
have a look.
With Shakib Al Hasan for Bangladesh, Waqar Yunus for Pakistan and Jason Holder for the West Indies, who is it for India?
Okay.
Ooh.
I have a vague sense of this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not correct. So I won't go
What's
into it.
common between Waqar and Shakib and is
You
that
may be
how-
giving out hints.
No, I mean that's how you got to crack it, isn't it? I mean,
And Jason Holder.
Jason Holder. They
All right,
Jason
so
Holder
think of
actually
this later. First, think of the predictions. We start with you.
okay.
How many do India get in the 20 overs? Mohali, you said it's a fresh pitch. It's going to be a fresh pitch at this time of the year.
Yeah, this time of the year, you might have to worry about first couple of overs. You might do a little bit. But this has always been a high-scoring ground.
Yeah.
It's a very fast outfield, and my number still remains at 189.
189 it is.
Ooh, big
Number of the
number.
season.
Yeah.
He's got the Viv Richards number, right? 189 was Viv Richards at Old Trafford.
He's got some theory for it.
Yeah, 189.
I'm pretty sure.
I moved from 183.
83 to 89.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going Kapil Dev.
83.
175.
175. Okay.
ये बच्चे लोगों को यार age.
Kapil
When
Dev
you
has
say
to be
Kapil Dev, it's 175.
175. Sorry. My bad. So I'll go sit at 183.
Yeah.
Then, so we've packed it amongst ourselves. This one's a tight one because we've not left room
183
for
is
each
actually
other.
Dhoni, right?
Yeah.
183 is Dhoni,
Kohli,
yeah.
Saurav Ganguly.
Saurav Ganguly, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. And if you want more stories around Indian cricket, the recently concluded India-England Test series that was played in England, we've got summer stalemate for you on Cricbuzz Plus, replete with HD match footages, of course, with stories being told by Michael Vaughan, Dinesh Karthik, Harsha Bogle. Do go enjoy that as well. We'll see you at the end of the 10 overs with Cricbuzz Combox. That's all that we have for you on this installment of Cricbuzz Live. Thank you, AJ. Thank you, JB, for joining us. Thank you to all of you as well. We'll see you super soon.